As usual, we say good morning or greetings to everybody. I know at home it is early morning now. Here it is late evening. We are going to continue with our lesson, and today we are going to be concentrating on why cybersecurity is important. Why is cybersecurity important? Remember, we are progressively moving to the last two topics, which is an investigation of cybercrimes and techniques to prevent or to protect against cybercrimes. So today, we are going to be concentrating on why cybersecurity is important. And we will start by saying that cyber attacks can be extremely expensive for businesses to stand. The world is predominantly a digital world now. All organizations, even individual people, even the government institutions, everybody is moving to conduct their businesses and their issues online. The world has become predominantly a digital world. Therefore, cyber attacks can be extremely expensive for businesses to stand. In addition to financial damage, there is the reputational damage. Reputational damage is what makes it even more worse. Once you suffer reputational damage, it is usually very difficult to recover. And then these days also, cyber criminals are using more sophisticated ways to initiate cyber attacks. So cyber security is very important because we have to move with time to counter these attacks. We are the specialists in this field. So we have to use even more advanced methods to prevent these attacks. Now, let's talk a little bit about the SEER triad. I'll try to move very fast in this presentation. Please bear with me and try to follow. Now, the main requirements for information protection can be summarized with the abbreviation SEER. The SEER triad is actually a security model that has been developed to help people think about various parts of IT security. SEER triad broken down means confidentiality of information, integrity of information, and availability of information. We are going to look at all these sections as we move along. Let's start with confidentiality. Confidentiality is about preventing the disclosure of data to unauthorized parties, preventing disclosure of information to unauthorized parties. It also means trying to keep the identity of authorized parties involved in sharing and holding data private and anonymous, keeping the people involved in sharing and using data private and anonymous. It also often confidentiality is compromised by cracking poorly encrypted data, man-in-the-middle attacks, and also disclosing of sensitive data. It is crucial in today's world for people to protect their sensitive, private information from unauthorized access. Protecting confidentiality is dependent on being able to define and enforce certain access levels for information. So preventing confidentiality is dependent on being able to define and enforce certain access levels for information. In some cases, doing this involves separating information into various collections that are organized by who needs access to the information and how sensitive that information actually is, i.e., the amount of damage suffered if the confidentiality was breached. Some of the most common means used to manage confidentiality include access control lists, volume and file encryption, and the Unix file permissions. Confidential information may include, what is confidential information? Confidential information may include business sensitive information such as trade secrets and personal private data relating to living persons. So confidential information may include business sensitive information such as trade secrets and personal private data relating to living persons. You can also think of confidential information, which which is a personal information or organizational information. For example, personal information. Your personal confidential information is maybe, let's say, your identity. Who are you? When is your date of birth? Which year were you born? Which medical record do you have? Any medical issues? That is what we call personal sensitive information. And organizational information, as I have mentioned, it could be trade secrets, it could be company logos, company operating procedures, company regulations. These are what we call sensitive company information, like operating licenses, such kind of information. And then we also look at standard measures to establish confidentiality include standard measures to establish confidentiality include data encryption. We are going to look at that in more detail in another module. Two-factor authentication. You already have a picture of this. Biometric verification, Security tokens, Information classification. Secure document storage. Application of general security policies. Education of information custodians and end users. And then cryptography, encryption. These are standard measures to establish confidentiality. Maybe I'll give you a minute. You write this one down. This one is important. Standard measures to establish confidentiality. Which are the standard measures to establish confidentiality? Which are the standard measures to establish confidentiality? So write it down. Then when we go back to the SEER triad, we talk about confidentiality, then we talk about integrity. Integrity refers to protecting information from being modified or manipulated by unauthorized parties. Data integrity is what the I in the SEER triad stands for. This is an essential component of the SEER triad and designed to protect data from deletion, modification, or modification from any unauthorized party. It ensures that when an authorized person makes a change that should not have been made, the damage can be reversed. Integrity. Standard measures guarantee integrity include cytographic checksums, using file permissions, uninterrupted power supplies, and data backups. So those are some of the standard measures to guarantee integrity. And then we also talk about availability. Availability is making sure that authorized parties can access the information when needed, ensuring the continued and uninterrupted accessibility to information to those who require it. A user may be a person or other computer or another resource. Standard measures to guarantee availability include backing up data to external drives, implementing firewalls. We are going to talk about firewalls, having backup power supplies, and also what we call data redundancy. These are some of the standard measures to ensure availability, or rather to guarantee availability of. So we have spoken about integrity, we have spoken about availability, we have spoken about iron confidentiality. And when we talk more about availability, we say authentication mechanisms, access channels, and systems all have to work properly for the information they protect, and they ensure it's available when it is needed. Threats to availability include, but are not limited to, natural disasters, threats to availability, natural disasters, fires, and explosions. Poor backup protocols, malware, DDoS attacks, file or media corruption, exploits, hacking, and failure to backup data to a protected central file server or the cloud. Availability may also be dented by the theft of hardware, especially laptops. Especially laptops. We continue from there. Next, we are going to go a little bit deeper to understanding the SEER triad. The SEER triad is all about information. While this is considered the core factor of most of the IT security, it promotes a limited view of the security that ignores other important factors. For example, even though availability may serve to make sure you don't lose access to resources needed to provide information when it is needed, thinking about information security in itself doesn't guarantee that someone else hasn't used your hardware resources without your information or authorization. It is important to understand what the SEER triad is, how it is used to plan and also to implement a quality security policy, while understanding the various principles behind it. It is also important to understand the limitations it presents. So you have to read more about the SEER triad and understand how it is used in implementing security policies necessary to secure information. Types of cyber attacks. A cyber attack is an exploitation of computer systems and networks. It uses malicious code to alter computer code, logic, or data and lead to cybercrimes, such as information and identity theft. Cyber attacks can be classified into the following categories: web-based attacks and 2, system-based attacks. Please note something from that slide. Cyber attacks is an exploitation of computer systems and networks. Web-based attacks. These are the attacks which occur on a website or web applications. Some of the important web-based attacks are as follows. Injection attacks. It is the attack in which some data will be injected into a web application to manipulate the application and fetch the required information. Example, SQL injection, code injection, log injection, XML injection, etc. Web-based attacks. 2 is DNS spoofing. DNS spoofing is a type of computer security hacking whereby a data is introduced into a DNS resolver's cache, causing the name server to return an incorrect IP address, diverting traffic to the attacker's computer or any other computer. The DNS spoofing attacks can go on for a long period of time without being detected and can cause serious security issues. And then we have session hijacking. It is a security attack on a user session over a protected network. Web applications create cookies to store the state and the user sessions. By stealing the cookies, an attacker can have access to all the user's data. And then there is phishing. We talked about it earlier on. Phishing is a type of attack which attempts to steal sensitive information like user login credentials and credit card number. It occurs when an attacker is masquerading as a trustworthy entity in the electronic communication. When an attacker sends a fraudulent email masquerading as the CEO or as the security manager. I remember we talked about this at length. And then we have brute force. It is a type of attack which uses a trial and error method. The attack generates many guesses and validates them to obtain actual data like user password and personal identification numbers. This attack may be used by criminals to crack encrypted data or by security analysts to test an organization's network security, white hackers or ethical hackers. Denial of service attack. We have spoken about this in the previous discussion, so I'll not go into many details. I'll just remind you about volumetric attacks, protocol attacks, and the application layer attacks. Then we have dictionary attacks. This type of attacks stored the list of a commonly used password and validated them to get original password. Dictionary attack. My statement is not very clear. Please check on that. URL interruption. It is a type of attack where we can change certain parts of a URL, and one can make a web server to deliver web pages for which he is not authorized to browse. Then we have file inclusion attacks. It is a type of attack that allows an attacker to access unauthorized or essential files, which is available on the web server, to execute malicious files on the web server by making use of the included functionality. And then there is also man-in-the-middle attacks. It is a type of attack that allows an attacker to intercept the connection between client and server and acts as a bridge between them. Due to this, an attacker can be able to read, insert, and modify the data in the intercepted connection. We look at system-based attacks. These are the attacks which are intended to compromise a computer or a computer network. System-based attacks. Some of the important system-based attacks are as follows. Virus. Virus. It is a type of malicious software program that spreads through the computer files without the knowledge of a user. It is a self-replicating malicious computer program that replicates by inserting copies of itself into other computer programs when executed. It can also execute instructions that cause harm to the system. We talked about viruses in our earlier presentation, and then we talk about also worm. This is another category of system-based attack. It is a type of malware whose primary function is to replicate itself to spread to uninfected computers. It works same as the computer virus. Worms often originate from email attachments that appear to be from trusted senders. And then we have a Trojan horse. It is a malicious program that occurs unexpectedly, unexpected changes to computer setting and unusual activity, even when the computer is idle. It misleads the user of its true intent. It appears to be a normal application, but when opened, it executes some malicious code which run in the background. Trojan horse. Then we also look at backdoors. This is also another system-based attack. It is a method that bypasses the normal authentication process. A developer may create a backdoor so that an application or operating system can be accessed for troubleshooting or other purposes. And then also we have boots. Boots is an automated process that interacts with other network services. Some boots programs run automatically, while others only execute commands when they receive specific input. Common examples of boots programs are the crawler, chatroom boots, and malicious boots. Let's turn our attention to the layers of the 7 layers of cyber security. 7 layers of cyber security. You can see them, you can read them. Can you please draw this diagram? I'll give you a minute. Draw this diagram, and then we continue. The 7 layers of cybersecurity should center on the mission-critical assets you are seeking to protect. Mission-critical assets. This is the data you need to protect. Remember, mission-critical assets is the data you need to protect. Data security. Data security controls protect the storage and transfer of data. And then there is application security. Application security controls protect access to an application. An application's access to your mission critical assets and the internal security of the application. And then there is endpoint security. Endpoint security controls protect the connection between devices and the network. Endpoint security controls protect the connection between devices and the network. So remember, mission critical assets, number 1, data security, number 2, application security, number 3, and then endpoint security. Application security protect access to an application. Data security protect the storage and transfer of data. Mission critical assets, this is the data you need to protect. Endpoint security protect the connection between devices and the network. 5, we have network security. Network security controls protect an organization's network and prevent unauthorized access of the network. Then there's perimeter security. Perimeter security controls include both the physical and digital security methodologies that protect the business in overall. Physical and digital security methodologies. When we talk about physical, we are now coming back to physical security, where we talk about security guards, we talk about these things. And then there is the human layer. Humans are the weakest link in any cybersecurity posture. Human security controls include phishing, simultaneous simulations, and access management controls that protect mission-critical assets from a wide variety of human threats, including cyber criminals, malicious insiders, and negligent users. So the human layer. Remember those 7 layers of cyber security. Remember the 7 layers of cyber security. Let's talk about vulnerability, threat, and harmful acts, just in brief. We already have mentioned this in other presentations. As the recent epidemic of data breaches illustrates, no system is immune to attacks. Any company that manages, transmits, stores, or otherwise handles data has to institute and enforce mechanisms to monitor their cyber environment. Identity vulnerabilities and close up security holes as quickly as possible. Before identifying specific dangers to modern data systems, it is crucial to understand the distinction between cyber threats and vulnerability. We need to understand the difference between cyber threats and vulnerability. So let's talk about cyber threats. Cyber threats are security incidences or circumstances with the potential to have a negative outcome for your network or other data management systems. Examples of common types of security threats include phishing attacks that result in the installation of malware that infects your data. Failure of a staff member to follow data protection protocols that cause a data breach, or even a tornado that takes down your company's data headquarters, disrupting access. When access is disrupted, where we go back to the SEER triad, we say information is not available. So that touches on availability. Vulnerabilities are the gaps or weaknesses in a system that make threats possible and tempt threat actors to exploit them. Types of vulnerabilities in network security include, but are not limited to, SQL injections. These are vulnerabilities. Server misconfigurations, cross-site scripting, and transmitting sensitive data in a non-encrypted plain text format. When threat possibility is multiplied by the potential loss that may result, cybersecurity experts refer to this as a risk. When threat probability is multiplied by the potential loss that may result, cyber experts refer to this as a security risk or as a risk. Categories of vulnerabilities. We have corrupted, which is loss of integrity, leaky, which is loss of confidentiality. Unavailable or very slow, which is loss of availability. Threats represent potential security harm to an asset when vulnerabilities are exploited. Attacks are threats that have been carried out. So attacks are threats that have manifested or threats that have been carried out. Attacks are threats that have been carried out. Passive. Make use of information from the system without affecting system resources. Active. Alter system resources or affect operation. Insider. Initiated by an entity inside the organization. Outsider. Initiated from outside the perimeter. And then remember, there is also an aspect of colluding, an insider working together with an outsider to execute these attacks. Assets and threats. We spoke about an asset. It is available data that is important to you, information that is important to you. This is when we talk about cybersecurity. Information that is important to you, or even the systems also. These are assets, the computers themselves, the routers. These are also assets. An asset is any data, device, or other component of an organization system that is of value, often because it contains sensitive data or can be used to access such information. For example, an employee's desk computer, laptop, or company phone will be considered an asset, as would applications on those devices. Likewise, critical infrastructure such as servers and support systems are assets, and organizations' most common assets are information assets. These are things such as databases and the physical files, i.e., the sensitive data that you store. Assets and threats. So those are assets. Now, what are threats? A threat is any incident that could negatively affect an asset. For example, if it's lost, knocked offline, or accessed by an authorized party. Threats can be categorized as circumstances that compromise the confidentiality, integrity, or availability of an asset, and can either be intentional or accidental. Intentional threats include things such as criminal hacking or malicious insider stealing information, whereas accidental threats generally involve employees' error, a technical malfunction, or an event that causes physical damage, such as a fire, or a natural disaster. So you need also to understand the difference between assets and threats, where we say assets are items of value and a threat is any incident that could effectively negatively affect an asset. Then motive of attackers. I'll not go into this again because we already did this. I'll just mention a few things. The categories of cyber attacks enable us to better understand the attacker's motivation and the actions they take. Operational cybersecurity risks arise from three types of actions. Inadvertent actions, generally by insiders, that are taken without malicious or harmful intent. Deliberate actions by insiders or outsiders that are taken intentionally and are meant to do harm. Inaction, generally by insiders, such as failure to act in a given situation. Motivations, we saw political, economical, social, cultural motivations. We spoke about those things, and we can just see cyber attack actions. This is a diagram that you can draw and also keep it in mind that these are the cyber attack actions. And then types of active attacks. Active attacks. There is active attacks and there are passive attacks. Active attacks. Number one is masquerade. In this attack, the intruder pretends to be a particular user of a system to gain access or to gain greater privileges than they are authorized for. Session replay. In this type of attack, a hacker steals an authorized user's login information by stealing the session ID. The intruder gains access and the ability to do anything the authorized user can do on the web. Message modification. In this attack, an intruder alters packet header addresses to direct a message to a different destination or modify the data on a target machine. In a denial of service attack, users are deprived of access to a network or web resource. This is generally accomplished by overwhelming the target with more traffic than it can handle. In a distributed denial of attack exploit, a large number of compromised systems, sometimes called a botnet or a zombie army, attack a single target. And also passive attacks. Passive attacks are relatively scarce from a classification perspective, but can be carried out with relative ease, particularly if the traffic is not encrypted. Passive attacks. Types of active attacks. Active attacks. We talk of eavesdropping, traffic analysis. Eavesdropping is when the attacker simply listens to messages exchanged by two entities. For the attack to be useful, the traffic must not be encrypted. Any unencrypted information, such as password sent in response to an HTTP request, may be retrieved by the attacker. And then we say traffic analysis. The attacker looks at the metadata transmitted in the traffic in order to deduce information relating to exchange and the participating entities. So there is a eavesdropping, which is tapping, and then there is a traffic analysis. These are types of passive attacks, not active attacks, types of passive attacks. And then we say software attacks. Software attacks involves malicious code, sometimes called malware. Is a type of software designed to take over or damage a computer user's operating system without the user's knowledge or approval. It can be very difficult to remove and very damaging. Common malware examples are listed in the following tables. So, virus, we have already spoken about virus, and then we have worms. We are already spoken about worms. Please read more about this. And then we have Trojan horse. We have already spoken about Trojan horse. This is just an additional information. And then we have a logic bomb. A logic bomb is a malware that lies dormant and until triggered. A logic bomb is a specific example of a logic bomb is an example of a synchronous attack. A trigger activity may be a specific date and time, the launching of a specific program, or the processing of a specific type of activity. Logic bombs do not self-replicate. And then we have hardware attacks. Common hardware attacks include manufacturing backdoors for malware or other penetrative purposes. Backdoors aren't limited to software and hardware, but they also affect embedded radio frequency transmission, chips, and memory. Then eavesdropping by gaining access to protected memory without opening other hardware, inducing faults, causing the interruption of normal behavior. And then we have hardware modification tampering with invasive operations. And then we have backdoor creation, the presence of hidden methods for bypassing normal computer authentication systems. And then counterfeiting. We also have cyber threats, cyber warfare. Cyber warfare refers to the use of digital attacks like computer viruses and hacking by one country to disrupt the vital computer systems of another, with the aim of creating damage, death, and destruction. Future wars will see hackers use computer code to attack an enemy's infrastructure, fighting alongside troops using conventional weapons like guns and missiles. Cyber warfare involves the actions by a non-state or international organization to attack and attempt to damage another nation's computer or information networks through, for example, common viruses or denial of service attacks. And then there is what we need to do in security terms is to ensure there are security policies. Security policies are a formal set of rules issued by an organization to ensure that the user who are authorized to access company technology and information assets comply with the rules and guidelines related to security information. Security policy also considered to be a living document, which means that the document is never finished, but it is continuously updated as the requirements of the technology and employees change. We use security policies to manage our network security. Security policies, we use them to manage network security just as we use security policies in normal physical security operations. And then the need for security policies, they increase efficiency, they uphold discipline and accountability, and then they make or break a business deal. And then security policies also helps to educate employees on security literacy. And then we say there are some important cybersecurity policy recommendations below: viruses and spyware protection, firewall policy. These are just some of the policies. For example, firewall policy, it blocks the unauthorized users from accessing the system and networks that connect to the internet. So you should make sure at your organization level, these policies are in place. Wherever you are working, talk slowly to the security manager or the IT manager. Make sure these policies are existing. And then there is also intrusion prevention policy. This policy automatically detects and blocks the network attacks and the browser attacks. It also protects applications from vulnerabilities and checks the contents of one or more data packages and detects malware which is coming through legal ways. Application and device control. This policy protects a system's resources from application and manages the peripheral devices that can attach to a system. The device control policy applies to both Windows and Mac computers, whereas application control policy can be applied on Windows clients. These are some of the policies that exist, and these are some of the policies that should be in place. With those few remarks, we come to the end of this presentation. We are going to handle the remaining two presentations in the coming weekend, or rather the coming Saturday. Thank you very much and have a nice day.